Well, as you know, I'm Paul Lauret, Dean Lauret's older brother, born and raised in New Orleans. Aviation career, I was in the military for about 21 years, flew the Air Force. Started out in trainer planes, but then flew F-16s for the last 14 years of my career. And then got hired by Southwest in 2012. Been flying for them now. I can't believe it's almost over 12 years now. It's gone by really, really, really fast. My position, I'm a captain of the airplane, been flying that position for about 1 year now. And I'm also one of the assistant chief pilots for the Houston domicile. So one of the managerial positions within the company as well. So typically the first people who are going to notify that there's a problem, the flight attendants are going to find out from the passenger, either in distress or from a family member, okay? And in their training, they're actually pretty well trained to start taking some basic information, age, gender, conditions, medications. We have the emergency medical kit on board where they can take vital signs as well. And so they're going to try to gather that basic information as soon as possible. Now, you've probably seen on TV or either been on a flight when it happens, they will actually call for any passengers that may have some form of medical training, be it a provider or a nurse, and then they'll go ahead and seek their assistance as well. Now, once they have the basic information is when they typically call up front to the cockpit and let us know what the situation is, what's going on. We'll try to pass information back to them about how much longer we have to fly to our destination. However, based on the severity of the situation, here's a great example that typically we'll have folks that feel a little bit faint or not feeling very well. And if they're somewhat elderly, of course, one of the first things they do, probably give them a little bit of orange juice. They may be hypoglycemic. And no kidding, that works most of the time. However, if the symptoms that they're encountering are a little bit more challenging, we have a service that I think actually all the major airlines contract with. It's called StatMD. Have you ever heard about that before?
Yeah, it's the consulting firm on the ground with some physicians. Is that right?
That's exactly right. Apparently, Southwest, Delta, and American, I know they use the service. It's actually based out of the University of Pittsburgh, where they have an emergency medicine doctor on call 24 hours a day. The procedures for us is that we call through the radio. There's a nationwide radio link that we can use. We can dial up a specific frequency on our VHF radio and get it patched directly to the University of Pittsburgh, where we will pass the information directly to the physician on call that the flight attendants have already gathered, okay? It's partly, of course, because of the expertise that they provide, but then also, to me, it was quite interesting to learn this, is that they assume responsibility and liability for the care of the patient. Because, of course, we could have a crew of three 21-year-old flight attendants and, captain with a little bit of experience, but then a very young first officer or co-pilot. Yeah, we want to make sure that we're passing the most sound medical advice, most importantly on whether do we need to land immediately or can we continue on to our destination. So, but most interesting one I had, no kidding, we had a patient that was beginning to present with chest pains and shortness of breath, and they were tachycardia. And no kidding, through StatMD, we got a hold of the emergency medical kit, but we also pulled out the AED on board, attached the leads to the chest. At the time, the AED did not recommend a shock, but as we flew on, the level of the pain began to increase. And then talking with the physician on StatMD, he said, you know what, it might not be a bad idea to get the airplane on the ground. And if I remember correctly, we were flying from Chicago to Los Angeles, but we happened to be very, very close to Denver, Colorado. And then so we went ahead and made the decision to land there. So and what we do in the cockpit, I don't know if you're interested in this, but as the captain, I'll tell my co-pilot, you're flying the airplane and you're making all of the air traffic control radio calls, but then I'll begin coordinating with the medical professionals on StatMD, but then I'll call ahead to Denver and let them know, all right, we're going to be coming in. We're declaring a medical emergency, which gives us priority over every other aircraft that's in the air. They turn us directly to the airport. We can pretty much do whatever we want to get that airplane on the ground as quickly as possible. And then after landing, we're going to ensure that we're going to have EMTs meet us at the jet bridge. And no kidding, once we get down on the ground, we pull up to the gate, open the door. We have all the rest of the passengers stay in their seat while EMTs come immediately on board and start assessing and taking care of the patient. I have one more anecdote for you, as a matter of fact. This is about 3-4 months ago. We got a phone call from one of our captains that they're flying along, had a patient or a passenger that wasn't in too good a shape. And after a while, the patient experienced a loss of respiration, and they pulled out the AED and administered shocks. And to their avail, it didn't save the patient's life. The patient was deceased upon arrival. When the EMTs got on board the airplane, they took his shirt off, and they found out that he had, I think the count was about 4 I don't know if it was fentanyl, but it was some form of opioid that they were using transdermal. Okay, and one of the first questions that I thought about, and incidentally, my wife is an ICU nurse, and with my brother as a physician as well, I was curious if we had any Narcan on board the airplane. Come to find out, we don't. About the only thing that they could administer cutaneously is we've got epinephrine, of course. We have EpiPens. But as of right now, we don't have Narcan. However, they are looking into providing that medication on board the EMKs. So we will see.